What's a common rule that you break regularly because you fundamentally disagree with it? Rules about pirating content that I am geographically restricted from streaming legally. Hell yeah, I'd download a car. Rules against pirating arcade games that can't be found. Jaywalking. If the street is obviously clear, I'm not going to wait for nothing. When the sensor at a traffic light doesn't pick up my car while I'm waiting for a left turn and the light rotation skips over me. It happens all the time at one set of lights I go through to get home. Especially late at night. I'd say it misses me 25% of the time. I once sat at the light for over 10 minutes to record it skipping over me multiple times. Middle of the night. Not a single other car on the road. It happens so often that I usually just run the red arrow if nobody is around. It's a wide open area around the intersection, so I can see a few hundred yards in all directions. I know it's breaking the law, but common sense and personal responsibility should make doing this a lot more acceptable. I shouldn't be held hostage by a malfunctioning traffic light late at night when nobody else is on the road. YouTube TOS says I can't block ads. The day they can stop me is the day I stop watching YouTube. Account sharing. I bought the game, service, movie, etc. I get to decide who uses it. If you see that your friend has forgotten to zip up their fly, don't embarrass them by announcing it. Just zip it for them. Do socks really need to match, or is this just a bill of goods sold to us by Big Laundry? If I find cash on the ground, I'm not going to give it to the authorities. I'm so tired of the subscription world we live in now. I basically just pirate everything. I used to still buy the discs, but many movies don't get released in UHD. So what's the point of even looking? I don't want to stream compressed 4K. And I certainly don't want to worry about whether or not the company pulls the movie from their service or just stops it altogether. I pirate a lot of apps, games, etc. that require subscriptions. If buying isn't owning, pirating isn't stealing. Breakfast foods. I've had coworkers walk in on me eating steak and mashed potatoes with asparagus at 7 a.m. for breakfast. When questioned, I always respond, I don't subscribe to societal norms of proper mealtime foods. Lying on your resume. I'm not talking about completely lying that you worked at Google for 2 years when you didn't. That's a little much. But in reality I have gaps between many jobs, due to either unemployment or just needing a damn break between jobs. But on my resume I have consecutively been employed with no gaps my entire career. I feel like recruiters see gaps as a red flag. And sometimes your resume doesn't make it far enough to even explain the gaps, even if they're completely harmless gaps. In regard to background checks for new jobs, I've personally still passed all of mine with no issues. To my knowledge, the agency conducting the background checks can only verify information you give them yourself, not the employer. So I simply don't provide exact dates, just the year I worked at whatever place. Of course this could backfire, but so far so good over here. Edit. I fundamentally disagree with it because employers lie about the job description all the time. What you actually end up doing rarely matches what they pitch you. Remember to sort by controversial. That we have a moral obligation to society to work 40 hours per week. There's a silly punctuation convention that comes from old school typesetting and is completely outdated in our modern world. Most authorities on formatting will tell you that if you include a quote in your writing, you should put the punctuation for your sentence inside the quote. For example, when I asked her, She said, "Go for it, but I really don't feel comfortable with it." That comma is part of my sentence. Not part of the quote from whoever she is. But the common wisdom is to put my comma inside the quote even though it's part of what I'm saying. Not part of what she's saying. The thing is, this rule was made up by typesetters back when the printed page was done using blocks of iron and a press. In those days, they switched the order because the tiny period block was fragile, so something like, when asked, the governor said, "I don't know where those raccoons came from," would tend to damage the block with period out there by itself and ruin the print. And so they changed it to put the period inside the quotation marks, which are more durable and could protect the period block. Now that we just type words on the internet and they remain as data, or are printed using lasers, there's no point following this rule. And it makes a lot more sense to keep the punctuation where it belongs. Either inside the quote if it's part of the quote, or outside if it isn't. So I write sentences like the example above all the time. I wear white any dang time of the year. That rule needs to die. I ignore margins in notebooks and write over them. Why waste space? I use the whole page. Never dig straight down.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.